Greetings, one and all, and welcome to another episode of the 1930s Time Traveler. Welcome, and I hope everyone's having a great week. Today, we have a guest that is known by so many. Even today, she's just become iconic and just a symbol of pop culture, and somehow, in so many communities, she is as famous today as she was during her own lifetime. I'm speaking, of course, of the absolutely incomparable Joan Crawford. Let's jump into her story, and I hope you enjoy it. The iconic lady was born Lucille Fay LeSueur as the youngest of three children born to Thomas LeSueur, a construction worker, and Anna Johnson in San Antonio, Texas on March 23, 1904, which is not entirely a certainty, and we may graze upon that later. Thomas left the family when Lucille was only 10 months old. She had an elder brother, Hal, and an elder sister, Daisy, who died before she was born. Anna remarried. Her second husband was Henry Casson. The new couple moved the family to Lawton, Oklahoma, where Lucille became fond of being called Billy. Casson ran the Ramsey Opera House, which became the playground of young Lucille. She called Casson Daddy, unaware that he was not her biological father, until her brother broke the news. There is speculation that Henry Casson abused Lucille from age 11 until she went to a Catholic girls' school. The details, however, are unknown. Lucille wanted to be a dancer and suffered a freak accident while attempting to escape a piano lesson, leaping from the front porch and cutting her foot upon an open milk bottle that had broken. She underwent multiple surgeries to repair it, but it also meant that she would miss over a year of dance classes. The family made another move, this time to Kansas City, Missouri, after Casson was accused of perpetrating embezzlement. He was later acquitted, but was blacklisted in the industry. This is what prompted their move and is also what brought Lucille to the Girls' Academy. She became a working student, doing tasks around the school and ignoring her studies. She later moved on to Rockingham Academy, where she continued to work at the school and to put her studies to the side. It was at Rockingham that Lucille began dating. She met Ray Sterling, who challenged her to take her studies more seriously. Lucille registered for Stevens College in Columbia, Missouri in 1922 and gave her birth date as 1906. Confusion, as I mentioned earlier. She attended for a few short months, but it was apparent that she was not prepared since she truly only had a primary education, based on her lack of interest in her late childhood and earlier teen years. My apologies for the bird squawking. I've done everything I can to soundproof. Lucille began dancing in traveling reviews until a producer showed interest and placed her in the chorus line of a 1924 production, Innocent Eyes. At this point, there is a record of a marriage to saxophone player James Welton, although she never mentioned this marriage when recounting her life later on. The future Ms. Crawford wanted more attention, so she approached the Lowe's Theater publicist Nils Granlund, who put her together with American performer Harry Richmond. Richmond set her up with a screen test and sent it off to Harry Raff at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. On Christmas Eve of 1924, Granlund was notified that Lucille had been offered a contract for $75 a week. Lucille had returned home after the screen test, so she was wired the news and borrowed $400 to travel to Hollywood. Lucille LeSueur's first film was Lady of the Night in 1925. She was the body double for MGM star Norma Shearer. She also appeared in The Circle and Pretty Ladies, both in 1925. She performed in another few silent films, Unbilled, before publicity head at MGM, Pete Smith, recognized her appeal and could see her rise to the top in Hollywood. He decided that her name sounded fake, and the studio had agreed, saying that LeSueur reminded him of sewer too much. So a contest was launched. Readers of the Movie Weekly were subject to the Name the Star contest, in which readers would be allowed to select Lucille's new stage name. Initially, she was to be named Joan Arden, but that name already belonged to another actress. Next was Joan Crawford. Lucille wanted the name to be pronounced Joanne and objected with Crawford since it sounded awfully like crawfish. Later, however, she enjoyed the solid sound of the name and the security it afforded her. Joan quickly became frustrated with the lack of substantial roles, and so she embarked on a crusade to self-promote. A former MGM screenwriter recalled later that Joan, quote, decided, unquote, that she was going to be a star, despite what anyone else wanted for her. She attended dances and performed in competitions, performing the Charleston and the Black Bottom dances, and winning. Her public promotion of her talents worked. MGM finally cast her in a role that impressed audiences in the film Sally, Irene, and Mary in 1925. Many say that Joan Crawford considered screen gem Norma Shearer to be her nemesis. She felt that Norma got everything she wanted, including her pick of scripts, but only because she allegedly slept with the boss, not because of talent. And she shared this with anyone that asked. Even so, Crawford was named one of 1926's baby stars by the Western Association of Motion Picture Advertisers. They believed that Crawford was on the precipice of movie stardom. In the same year, she co-starred in Paris with Charles Ray. In just a few years, Crawford was co-starring with MGM's top male stars, first of which was the amazing veteran actor Lon Chaney Sr. in The Unknown 1927. She said she learned more about acting from watching Chaney than anyone else in her career. She said that it was then that she realized the difference between standing in front of a camera and acting. Later that year, she made Spring Fever with William Haynes. In 1928, Crawford starred alongside Raymond Novello in Across to Singapore. Our Dancing Daughters was also made in 1928, and this film is the one that catapulted her to stardom and fame. She played a flapper who embodied feminine mystique to rival Clara Bow's It Girl persona, if you can believe it. On June 3rd, 1929, Joan Crawford married Douglas Fairbanks Jr. in a Catholic church, although neither was Catholic, because the chapel was near Broadway and considered the Actors' Chapel. As the son of Douglas Fairbanks and stepson of Mary Pickford, Hollywood royalty, Fairbanks was quite a catch. However, his famous parents did not approve of marriage and did not see the couple until 8 months after their marriage. Despite the parents warming to visits from the newlyweds, Mary Pickford and Joan Crawford despised each other and never quite had a positive relationship. Even when the men would head out for a game of golf, the ladies would stay apart. Crawford spent a great deal of time trying to shed her Midwestern accent, working diligently on elocution and diction by reading newspapers and books aloud to herself. Her first feature-length film with sound, The Jazz Singer in 1927, became the new norm and made many stars panic due to their unflattering voices, some even refusing to transition to talking pictures. MGM was the last of the studios to transition. In one of their first talkies review of 1929, Crawford sang and made a stunning impression. She transitioned into the new film trend without a hitch, making Untamed in 1929, Montana Moon in 1930, Blushing Brides, also 1930, and Paid, finally, also in 1930. All were major successes for the starlet. In 1931, MGM cast her in 5 new films, 3 of them opposite Clark Gable, the soon-to-be King of Hollywood. She took on more sophisticated roles in 1931. Dance Fools Dance, the first of the Crawford and Gable collaboration, Laughing Sinners, Possessed, This Modern Age, and Grand Hotel. Crawford starred in Letty Layton in 1932, but MGM was forced to withdraw the film due to a plagiarism suit. It has been considered the lost Crawford film. In that film, Crawford wore a gown with large, puffy sleeves, which became very popular that year, to the point that Macy's began selling a copy of said gown. Joan was loaned to United Artists and played a prostitute named Sadie in Rain in 1932. For the first time, the film and Crawford received poor reviews. Even so, Crawford found herself on the 1932 list of 10 top money-making stars. She remained on the list until 1936. Crawford and Fairbanks began having arguments. Joan blamed it on his tendency toward jealousy and anger over trivial subjects. They were divorced. Soon after the divorce was final, Joan was once again cast opposite Clark Gable, along with Franchot Tone and Fred Astaire in Dancing Lady, 1933. She received top billing in this film and was once again riding high. She first appeared with Franchot Tone in Today We Live. Then her pairings with Gable continued in Chained and Forsaking All Others in 1934. In 1935, Crawford married Franchot Tone, even though she was weary of jumping into a new relationship so soon after her divorce. There is some alleged contention between her and Betty Davis over Franchot Tone, although you'll have to find that in my notes later because I'm not going to talk about it right now. Joan tried to promote Franchot as an actor, but he had no interest in stardom. They also tried to start a family, but were unable to after 2 miscarriages. Tone allegedly began drinking and displayed some abusive behavior. Crawford filed for divorce, which was granted in 1939. In the 1960s, they rekindled a friendship. It was so successful that Tone proposed again in 1964. He died in 1968, and Joan made his cremation arrangements, scattering his ashes in Canada. Crawford continued to enjoy popularity in Hollywood films such as No More Ladies, 1935, prompting Louis B. Mayer to cast Joan in more dramatic roles. She starred in I Live My Life, also 1935, The Gorgeous Hussy in 1936, and Love on the Run, also in 1936. Her final film with Franchot Tone had been The Bride Wore Red in 1937, but it was not well received and became a financial loss for the studio. Her next film, Mannequin, co-starring Spencer Tracy, was also released in 1937 and forced the New York Times to proclaim that it had restored Crawford to her throne as the queen of the working girls. In 1938, Joan Crawford, along with Greta Garbo, Norma Shearer, Louise Rayner, John Barrymore, Katharine Hepburn, Fred Astaire, Dolores Del Rio, and others, were dubbed Box Office Poison. The list was procured by the Independent Theater Owners Association of America, stating that the actors had definitive dramatic abilities, but that their high salaries were not warranted based on ticket sales. After the unflattering title was given to her, Crawford made The Shining Hour in 1938. Critics liked it, but it flopped at the box office. Not to worry, however, she made a comeback in an uncharacteristic role in Strange Cargo, 1940. In 1941, she starred as a disfigured girl in a Swedish remake called A Woman's Face. As a single woman who desired children, Joan decided to adopt. Her first was daughter Cristina, who fulfilled her dreams of motherhood. And after a 6-month courtship, she married actor Philip Terry on July 21st, 1942. The couple went on to adopt a second child, a boy, whom they named Philip Terry Jr. The marriage sadly ended in 1946, and Joan quickly changed her son's name to Christopher. After an 18-year relationship with MGM Studios, the contract was terminated on June 29, 1943. There was a final film on the contract which was unfulfilled, thus MGM bought her out for $100,000. Crawford went on to sign with Warner Brothers for a 3-movie deal worth $500,000. With them, she made Hollywood Canteen in 1944, followed by a strong desire to play the lead role in Mildred Pierce in 1945. Betty Davis was the studio's pick for the role, but she turned it down, opening it up for Crawford. The director, Michael Curtiz, did not want her to play the role, and chased Barbara Stanwyck as his leading lady. But the studio went over his head and cast Crawford. Curtiz demanded she do a screen test and finally agreed to cast her, but he considered her a has-been and made comment on her appearance, convinced she was wearing shoulder pads, at one point tearing open the top of her dress to expose said shoulder pads. It wasn't true, and despite difficulties during filming, Joan Crawford went on to receive the Academy Award for Best Actress in a Leading Role. She created a visual standard for film noir moving into the late 1940s. Mildred Pierce was exactly what Crawford's career needed. It was revived, and for many years, she starred in a series of melodramas. Her next Academy Award came for her performance in Humoresque, 1946, Possessed, a different one than 1931, this one in 1947, then co-starring with Dana Andrews and Henry Fonda in Flamingo Road in 1949. During this time, in approximately 1947, Joan adopted 2 more children, Cindy and Kathy. She made a small appearance in It's a Great Feeling in 1949, and in 1950 she starred in melodramas The Damned Don't Cry and Harriet Craig. Finally, she made This Woman is Dangerous in 1952, which she called her worst. She asked for Warner Brothers to release her from her contract. She felt the scripts she was being offered were of poor quality and making her look bad, quite frankly. She later made Sudden Fear for RKO Radio Pictures and received another Academy Award nomination. Crawford also spent a fair bit of time doing radio acting for the Screen Guild Theatre, Everyman's Theatre, and Lux Radio Theatre, among others. And in 1959, she even prepared a pilot for The Joan Crawford Show. On May 10, 1955, Crawford married her 4th and final husband, Alfred Steele, at Bugsy Siegel's Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. Steele eventually became CEO of Pepsi-Cola, and he and Crawford both traveled extensively for the company. Sadly, Steele died of a heart attack in 1959. After the death, Crawford stayed on and filled a chair on the Pepsi board of directors. She remained with them until 1973. Crawford returned to MGM in 1953 to star in Torch Song, a musical drama. It was billed as a major comeback for Crawford. However, it was a failure. She went on to make Johnny Guitar, Female on the Beach, and Queen Bee in 1955. She starred in leading roles in Robert Aldrich films such as Autumn Leaves of 1956 and Davis Miller's The Story of Esther Costello in 1957. With little money left after the death of Alfred Steele, she accepted a small role in The Best of Everything in 1959. She was creating interest in her career again, and by 1961, she was in a good position. It was at this time she was offered a new script, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. She starred opposite Bette Davis in the 1962 psychological thriller. The 2 actresses had been competitive in earlier years, but it was Joan that recommended Davis for the part of Jane, stating publicly that there was no feud between them. The film was a tremendous success, but the negative comments flew between the actresses when the film was released. There are numerous stories about their mudslinging. I have attached some links that may shed some light on the taboo topics of Joan's life and of her feud with Bette Davis. In 1964, Crawford made a horror mystery called Straitjacket, and soon there was a second horror film. This time it was another pairing with alleged rival Bette Davis in Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte. On location in Louisiana, Davis was said to have harassed Crawford by making negative statements about her left and right. Crawford ended up in the hospital, mysteriously, but many thought she had feigned illness in order to escape the film. In the end, Olivia de Havilland took her place in that film. She later said that she heard the news of her replacement while in her hospital bed and that she cried for 9 hours. In 1965, Crawford continued to enjoy the horror genre in I Saw What You Did, another of several William Castle productions, then working with Herman Cohen in Berserk in 1967. She also guest starred as herself on The Lucy Show with Lucille Ball in February of 1968. She allegedly drank heavily on set and had several difficulties during rehearsal. Despite the drama, she was perfectly behaved and performed beautifully during the episode filming. She received not one, but 2 standing ovations from Lucy's studio audience. Crawford also appeared in the 1969 production Night Gallery. This ended up becoming the pilot episode for the series of the same name, directed by a young Steven Spielberg. And another cameo appearance on The Tim Conway Show, airing in January of 1970. Her final appearance on the movie screen was in a science fiction film called Trog in 1970. Thus, she wrapped up a career that spanned over 45 years and 80 motion pictures. Between 1970 and 1972, Joan made 3 more television appearances, always longing to work. Joan Crawford received the Cecil B. DeMille Award, presented by John Wayne at the Golden Globes in 1970. She continued to take speaking engagements, including one at her former college, and to be seen at famous friends' parties, the last of which was Rosalind Russell's book party, which she co-hosted at New York City's Rainbow Room. The next day, she saw pictures of herself in the papers and decided that if she looked that bad, that perhaps she should not be seen anymore. This began her descent into a more reclusive lifestyle. She declined interviews and developed health problems that were exacerbated by her heavy drinking. But miraculously, she stopped drinking in 1974 when she became a Christian Scientist, although no one can confirm if the choice was made due to her newfound religion. On May 6th of 1977, Joan gave away her prized pet Shih Tzu because she was too infirm and weak to take care of the dog. On May 10th, 1977, in her apartment in New York City, Joan suffered a heart attack and died. She left large sums of money to various charities. However, her last will and testament was highly contested and controversial due to her omission of her eldest children, Cristina and Christopher, largely in response to the turmoil which ensued after Cristina's publication of her memoirs titled Mommy Dearest. Links detailing the drama and allegations are in the description box. I won't entertain the abuse legacy in this video. There were 2 memorial services held for Joan, one at All Souls Unitarian Church and one in the Samuel Goldwyn Theater at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences in Beverly Hills, California. She was cremated and her ashes placed in a crypt next to her husband, Alfred Steele, in Ferncliff Cemetery, Hartsdale, New York. Joan was immortalized by her hand and footprints in front of Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood, and she had a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Joan Crawford has become an iconic symbol of success and power in pop culture, and there are many representations of her in her homage. There are several clips and articles linked in the description box for your exploration. Some of them do touch upon racier topics and controversy and scandal. There is a lot of it with respect to Joan Crawford, as there was with Betty Davis. I did not include any of it, very little of it, in the telling of her story. She is a human being who made mistakes, and my series is more to glorify people that made a difference in our world, and not so much to point out their faults, because we all have them, and however heinous they may be, it's not our place to judge. So I leave this here for your approval, and there will be some clips also in the description box that you can go and watch and see some of her amazing work. You can't dispute that she was talented. So there are some biography facts. There are some Crawford Davis Feud facts. There are also interviews with her daughter, Cristina Crawford, talking about the memoirs and the subsequent film, Mommy Dearest, and whether or not it paralleled her actual experience. And in fact, it didn't necessarily do that. There are some fascinating videos out there on the topic, but draw your own conclusion. I've also included a filmography and, again, clips and clips and clips of her amazing work. If you get a chance, there are several entire films. They're just full films for free all over the internet. If you've got Tubi, they're on there. And definitely on YouTube, there's several a handful of her films for free that you can see in entirety. I highly recommend it. I definitely recommend that you see Mildred Pierce if you can. Definitely recommend Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, where you can see these two iconic actresses together later in their life. It's amazing. It's fascinating. The talent is palpable. And, again, draw your own conclusion. There were a lot of stories about the making of that film and whether or not Betty injured Joan. Lots of stuff out there. But here is my Sim Joan. I hope you enjoy everything that we've done today. Thank you for watching. Thank you, as always, for your amazing support. I'm looking to grow this channel and get more people into our vintage world. If you know somebody that could benefit or enjoy these videos or from these videos, please send them my way. There are the two iconic actresses together in sim form. I love making this series, and I'm really loving the 1930s. I had to do these guys back to back. I know you understand. Until next time, friends, I hope you are happy, safe, and healthy, and that you have an absolutely beautiful day.